evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's program, Stories from Family and Community. My name is Mark Livingood, Director of the Story Center at Mid-Continent Public Library. This year, the Story Center is partnering with the University of Missouri Extension's Community Arts Program to offer a series of free public programs that commemorate the Missouri Bicentennial. Called State of Stories, this series features storytelling performances and workshops, book conversations, and humanities programs that explore the history and culture of the Show Me State. Funding for tonight's program has been provided by the William T. Kemper Foundation Commerce Bank trustee. Tonight's program features storytellers Dr. Gladys Caines-Coggswell and Angela J. Williams, BA. Welcome to you both, and thank you for being here. And we also, hello Gladys, hello Angela.
Hi.
Welcome. And to introduce Gladys and Angela, we are also joined by Dr. Lisa Overholser, Director of the St. Louis Storytelling Festival and Field Specialist for Extension's Community Arts Program. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Lisa?
Hi. Well, I want to say thank you on behalf of the University of Missouri Extension. We are thrilled to partner with the Story Center to present the State of Stories program. And I am especially thrilled to be able to present our storytellers for tonight, the esteemed and very talented Dr. Gladys Caines-Coggswell will be sharing stories along with the very talented and longtime regional teller at the festival, Angela Williams, who has a BA. They are kind of the perennial storytellers. They have learned storytelling the very traditional community-based way. They'll be sharing stories tonight that they've learned from several different areas. They've learned stories from their great-grandmothers, grandmothers, communities, and at family reunions. Some of the stories reach back to the days of slavery. Others were shared or collected during Dr. Coggswell's research for her book, Stories from the Heart, Missouri's African American Heritage. They also perform stories about their personal experiences. And I should also say that tomorrow they will be giving a workshop on developing and telling and sharing family stories and historical stories. So we're very excited to present them tomorrow as well. But tonight, I want to turn it over to Dr. Coggswell and Angela Williams. And without further ado, here you go.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Angela Williams again, and this is Dr. Gladys Coggswell. And we are so glad to be able to share stories with you this evening. Thank you, Mark Livingood, for allowing us to be here, and also Lisa Overholser. All right. I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Coggswell, because if it was not for her, I wouldn't be here. In 2003, she asked me to be her apprentice through the Missouri Folk Arts Apprenticeship Program. And what do you know? 18 years later, here I am. I was able to be a master storyteller as well. You know, Dr. Coggswell used to come to my school, Oakwood Elementary in Hannibal, Missouri, and tell stories when I was 9 years old. So it's just amazing how life just continues to go and go. And I'm glad that she taught me how to tell stories, traditional stories, taught me how to write down stories from my childhood, also the stories from my grandmother who I was able to interview and things. So if you come tomorrow to the workshop, you'll hear more about it. But we're going to share some stories. Now, you know, I was very shy, and that's another thing I was kind of shocked that Miss Gladys, Dr. Gladys, asked me to be a storyteller, because I felt like I could hardly put two sentences together. It was terrible, but she was so patient. I mean, she was patient, and she really is the master of storytellers. So before I start, I always start out with a little song. And this is an African folktale poem song, and I'm going to share it with you. Here we go. Once upon a time, a rooster drank wine. He played a fiddle on a streetcar line. Streetcar broke and the monkey choked, trying to get to heaven on green. Whoa, green gold. You can clap with me. Rooster and the chicken had a fight. Rooster knocked chicken outside. Rooster said, hey, that's all right. Mention the gum tomorrow. Roll night. Buck and Berry ran around. race. Bucky fell down and skinned his face. Bucky buried in a stall. Bucky tried to eat it all. Bucky ate too much, you see. He died with cholera. There we go. This is my talking drum, and I got it from a dear friend. Her name is Lorraine Gonda, and she's the reason why I'm able to play that this evening. All right, so the story I'm going to tell you is a true story. It's a story that I have struggled to tell because it's just so traumatizing. Because when I was 3 or 4 years old, my father decided to move his family into this 12-room house. Whew. We lived upstairs, and my father operated his business downstairs. This is the place where my connections with ghosts and fear began. Did I say fear? Well, that is an understatement. I was horrified. And when you are horrified at the age of 3 or 4, you just might wet the bed at night or in the daytime too. Well, I did both. Let me tell you a couple stories. There was one night it was so cold and we didn't have heat in that house. So the kerosene that my father used to light at night to keep us warm seemed like it wasn't working too well. And I knew if I wet the bed, I was going to be even colder. So I went to my sister. Psst, psst. Will you help me? Help me go downstairs and use the restroom. And my sister was so kind. She got up. She took my hands and we went down those 12 steps. Let me tell you. Now, at the end of those 12 steps to go downstairs to the funeral home, there was not a door that had 12 bolts that locked up. Oh, no. All there was is big, long, red drapes. And my sister was going to take me right through those drapes. And I said, hold it. I said, I need to look. I took my little fingers and put them through the drapes. And I looked to the left. I didn't see anything. Then I looked to the right. I didn't see anything. So I began to walk through. Then I felt something that chilled my body. Whew. And I felt another arm on my hand. I said, don't take me, please. Please, please don't get me. I don't want to die. I'm too young. I'm too beautiful. Please don't take me. And the light switch came on. Guess who it was? It was my father. He said, child, what's wrong with you? I said, I was trying to use the restroom and I felt something and it scared me. He said, girl, don't you know the dead people can't hurt you? It's the people living that you need to worry about. Well, I didn't have to worry about going to the bathroom anymore because there was a puddle right between my legs and I didn't try that anymore. Well, there was another day. It was in the daytime. And I needed something from my mom and dad, and I knew they were downstairs. So since it was daytime, I tried to go down those steps. I got to those big red drapes. I stuck my little hands in between them, and I looked to the left. I didn't see anything. And I looked over to my right. And over there to my right, I saw a man. And he was laying in the casket. Oh, the man was breathing. His stomach was moving up and down, up and down. I said, Daddy, come here, Daddy, please come here. And my father came from around the corner. He looked down at me. He saw that I was serious and something was wrong with me. He said, child, what's wrong with you? I said, look, that man is breathing. He's not dead. He's breathing, Daddy. Call his family, Daddy. Daddy, they don't have to cry no more, Daddy. Well, my father looked down at me. He knew I was serious. And so, my father's a man. He was a man of faith, So he said, well, maybe this is my time. So he took his hand, he placed it over the man's stomach. He let it sit there for a while. Mm-hmm. He placed his hand and took it a little farther up to the man's chest and let it sit there for a while. Then he took his index finger and he placed it under the man's nose. Then he looked down at me. He said, Angela, this man is very much dead. Remember what I told you. The dead people can't hurt you. It's the people living that you need to worry about. And he went on to say, Angela, have you ever seen a dead person hit you upside the head? Dad. I ain't seen that. And Angela, have you ever seen a dead person rob you, take your money? I said, Dad, I ain't never seen that. He said, that's right. Because the dead people can't hurt you. It's the people living that you need to worry about. Well, for the first time, I sat on those steps with the drapes closed. As my father allowed the man's family to come in and say their last goodbyes. The organist came in and tuned up the organ. The soloist came up to the front and sang, one glad morning, when this life is over, I'll fly away. I was sitting on the steps. He don't have to fly away. He's alive. He doesn't have to fly. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. I sat on those steps. I heard the people leave. I heard them put the casket on the rollers and roll the man, and I knew where they were going, to the cemetery. You know, my mother, she began to worry about me. She said, Rodney, you know, I'm worried about our daughter, Angela. She said, we're going to have to move out that house. She's going to go crazy. Something's going to happen. My father said, oh, she'll be okay. But I wasn't. My connection with ghosts and spirits was so deep that I would tell my father, I said, Father, you about to get a death call. He looked down at me. He kind of ignored me. And within 5 minutes, someone would call and tell him to go to the hospital and pick somebody up. When we passed by the cemeteries to go to my grandma's house, I would duck all the way underneath the car, under the glove compartment, so I couldn't see and feel him. I would cry till we was way past the cemetery. My mother said, now, Rodney, we have to go. We can't allow her daughter. We can't afford any more mattresses. But my father finally listened. And do you know, when we moved out of that house, that funeral home, I never complained of seeing ghosts or spirits again. And I stopped wetting the bed. And that's the end of the true story, the funeral home. I know I can't hear you, I can't see you, but I can hear those applause, and I appreciate it. All right. I also wanted to share something about my grandmother. My grandmother, her name was Louise Jean Dixon Williams. She died. She will be gone 4 years on the 21st of this month. So I know she's here with me, and I can feel her, and I think about her often. And again, like, I'm so thankful that I wrote down and interviewed my grandmother when Dr. Coggswell encouraged me to do so. You know, living in that funeral home, I had to come up with some things to get out of that house. You know, there's even a time when I said I was going to run away. Run away I didn't know where I was going, but I was going to run away. And I knew my grandmother would always have me. She did. She would let me come stay the night as many times as I want. But one night I couldn't go. You know, my grandmother was sweet. She didn't think I was too fat, too talkative, or too anything. My grandmother would listen to me and would always make me feel better. Even when my two older brothers would tease me and laugh so hard at my troubles. The ghosts, I'm telling you, those ghosts were harassing me, and I was wetting the bed at home. And sometimes they will follow me places, and I will wet the bed there too, or wherever I was at there too. Whew. But my grandmother, she would assure me, oh my goodness, and tell me that everything was going to be okay. She really was my protector. She was my supporter. She was my friend. You know, my life wasn't working out for me. My older brothers was teasing me all the time, no matter how much I cried for them to leave me alone. Oh, they would tease me. And one night, after attending church, my parents decided to go out to eat. And they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed and upset with me because my clothes were wet. My brother thought that was the funniest thing, that I peed on myself in the Lord's house. My parents dropped me off and my brothers at the funeral home. I couldn't believe it. I was terrified to think that my parents were going to leave me. And what was worse was that they left me with my brothers, whom I didn't trust at all. I screamed. I cried. I begged for them not to go. But my parents didn't care. And after they left, my brothers teased me as if it was their life's calling. The person I thought who could help me was my grandmother. I knew her number at 4 years old, and I dialed it right away. 2, 2, 1. And when I finished dialing her number, she immediately answered and heard my voice and asked me what was wrong with her beautiful grandbaby. I told her everything that was going on, how my brothers were teasing me, and without hesitation, she said, "Put them on the phone." And I handed the phone to my oldest brother, and I rubbed my hands together. And by the look at his face, I knew she was bawling him out. And when he handed the phone to my other brother, his face looked just like my oldest brother. And they gave me the phone, and I heard my grandmother yell, "Now you apologize to your baby sister." And they did. I didn't want to forgive them. But that was the last thing I heard the preacher say that night before I wet myself. So I began to talk to my grandmother on the phone. And finally I asked her, "Grandma, do you want to smell my mama's perfume?" She said, "Yes, baby." So I took my mother's perfume and I sprayed it behind this ear, on my neck, just like I watched my mother, on each wrist. Can you see that wrist? Okay, here we go. Then I took the phone and I placed it on each spot I sprayed. And I said, "Grandma, how it smell?" She said, "Baby, it smelled better on you than it do your mother." After I got done talking to my grandma, I forgot all about those ghosts, my brother teasing me, at least for the night. And that's the end of my story. You know, my grandparents were Christians. And a lot of times when I stayed the night over at my grandmother's house, she would wake me up early in the morning because she'd be praying. In this next story, I want to dedicate this story to her because it reminds me just of my grandmother and my relationship with her. There was a grandmother who was teaching her young granddaughter Alice how to pray. And they kneeled down on the bed. And Alice knew when Grandma prayed that it could take a long time. Oh, grandmother began to pray. Oh, precious Lord Jesus. Woo, we thank you. Little Alice said, oh, here we go. We thank you for the sun. We thank you for the moon. We thank you for each person in our family. Lord, protect them, guide them, lead them, direct them. Little Alice said, oh. Lord, look over them from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet. Lord. Oh, grandmother probably prayed for a whole hour. When grandmother concluded her prayer, she looked down at the little baby Alice. She said, now, get granddaughter. Now, I want you to say the prayer. And little Alice said, oh, Lord, I ask you to bless me with a little bit of what you gave Grandma. Amen. And that's the end of that. Thank you. I still hear your applause. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, the last story I'm going to tell before the wonderful Dr. Gladys Caines-Coggswell tell is called the Blind Man and the Hunter. All right. Here we go. There once was a blind man who was very wise, and he lived with his brother. And people from all over would come to hear his wisdom. He was so wise. They would ask him questions. They would come from miles and miles just to hear what the blind man would say. And one of the people said, Mr. Blind Man, tell me, how do you know so much? And the blind man would simply say, he said, that is because I can see with my ears and not with my eyes. Well, the chief of the village had made an announcement that he would give a reward to the person who found the most beautiful bird. Oh, the blind man knew he could win because he could hear things that nobody else could. And he went to his brother. He said, brother, please let me go with you. And the brother said, how are you going to go with me? And you can't see. He said, don't you know I can see with my ears and not with my eyes? He said, I want to win this prize so I can give it for my baby. And the brother said, no, you, But the blind man was so persistent that his brother gave in. He said, look, listen here. If you're not ready to go in the morning, I'm going to leave you. And the next morning, the blind man was waiting at the door. And his brother rolled his eyes and said, come on. The blind man, he held onto his brother's arm as they walked into the jungle. And the brother was just fussing. I don't even know why you want to come with me. You always want to come with me at the most craziest times. Here I am going to hunt. You might try to hurt me. And the blind man said, shh. He said, what's wrong with you? You can't see nothing. Why are you telling me to shh? And the brother said, the blind man said, shh. And his brother listened. The brother couldn't believe when there was a leopard that ran by them that was chasing the gazelle. The brother said, how'd you know that, blind man? He said, I tried to tell you. I can see with my ears and not with my eyes. He said, well, since you're so smart, where are we going to find these birds? He said, shh. I can hear some water. Lots of birds are chirping. He said, go over here. And the brother listened. When they got there to the water stream, they lowered their traps, laid them on the ground, and they was going to come back the next day to see what they caught. The next morning, they went there. And when the blind man said, brother, did we catch anything? The brother said, yes, we caught 2 birds. But when the brother looked down, he saw that the blind man, the blind man had the most beautiful bird. The feathers were yellow, blue, green. Oh, the beak was pure, almost like pure gold. And he looked at the bird he caught, and that bird was just dusty. It was just like a brown, pale color, a little grayish. It was just an ordinary little bird. So he reached down and he put the blind man's beautiful bird in his pouch and gave the blind man his bird, which was and put it in his pouch. And they went back home. And as they was walking back home, the brother was just talking. He said, blind man, since you so smart and know so much, why don't you tell me why there's so much arguing and fighting? You know, why is there so many people not getting along with each other? Well, the blind man thought for a moment and then turned to his brother as if he was looking right through his heart. The blind man said, people argue and fight with each other when someone does the very same thing that you have done to me. Oh, the brother almost fell over from shock. The shame he felt brought tears to his eyes. With a bowed head and trembling hands, he took the beautiful bird from his pouch and gave it to the blind man in exchange for the little murky, kind of grayish bird, brownish, that was rightfully his. He also apologized for what he had done. As they continued to walk home, the brother said, what would allow people to become friends again after they have fought? And the blind man simply smiled and said, when people admit their mistakes, apologize, and do the right thing as you have done, there will be more peace and friends than fighting and foes. And when the blind man received his reward, he shared it with his brother and had enough for his daughter too. Well, that's the end of The Blind Man and the Hunter. Thank you for listening. And now I want to present the Dr. Gladys Caines-Coggswell, who was my master storyteller and still is. Here you go.
Thank you, Angela. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Angela was talking about her grandmother. And we all think back to our grandmothers and great-grandmothers. Mine was my great-grandmother. And I didn't like her too much when I was little because she always told me stories. I didn't say nothing to her at any time, except why can't she just beat me like other people do their children? But no, she chose stories. Later on, when I became older, I realized the value of those stories because they helped me get through a lot of things. So this story I'm going to tell you wasn't about her telling me a story. She was in the story. So this is how it goes. It's called The Wooden Chair. Now, my grandmother was the best cook in the world, according to me. And this day she had baked some cookies. They were so good. I knew I was supposed to have 12 of those cookies, but she only gave me 3. Well, that didn't sit too well with me. That night, when my sister and I went to bed and we shared a bed, I was thinking about those cookies. Oh, I had to have some more. So I hunched my sister. I said, psst, psst, let's go in the kitchen and steal some cookies. My sister looked at me as if I was crazy. She said, no, we can't steal no cookies. Grandma says you steal cookies, you won't go to heaven when you die. I want to go to heaven. You want to go steal cookies? You go in there by yourself. Because I'm not stealing no cookies. I'm going to heaven. Well, I love my sister, but I love cookies more. And that made me mad. So I hauled off and I punched her in the face. And I called her a boogie-faced scaredy cat. And she called my grandmother, Grandma. I said, you better shut up. She said, Grandma. Shut up, I said. Grandma. Here comes my great-grandmother, just walking in that room. She looked at me as if I was the devil himself. Then she went over to my sister's side of the bed. She said, what's the matter with Grandma's good baby? My sister was the master storyteller, liar. She was all too happy to tell. She was such a tattletale. She said, she hit me in my face right here. Is it bleeding? My grandmother looked at, she said, no, honey, it's not bleeding. She better hurt, Grandma. You sure it's not bleeding? No, baby, it's not bleeding. That ain't no she did, Grandma. She called me a dirty, filthy, rotten name. She called me a boogie-faced scaredy cat. Oh, she did. That's right, Grandma. She called me that boogie-faced scaredy cat. Oh, my goodness. What did she do all that for? She wanted me to go in the kitchen and steal some cookies. I said, no, because Grandma, you told her and you told me, if you steal cookies, if you steal anything, you won't go to heaven when you die. And I want to go to heaven. I'm a good girl, Grandma, I'm a good girl. Yeah, baby, you're a good girl. Now go to sleep, because you know you got to go to school in the morning. And I'll take care of her. She came around to my side of the bed. She gave me the evil eye. And she said, well, I knew I was in trouble. I got up in super slow motion and followed her. I thought she was going to beat me, but I should have known better, because all she ever did was tell stories. Well, we went to the wooden chair that was at the other end of the house in the living room. She sat down and I stood up. That was the thing I hated about this wooden chair. No matter how tired I was, I had to stand up and she had sat down. And I was so mad at myself because I promised myself I would never do nothing to go to that wooden chair anymore. I had let Johnny Goodman play doctor in my navel. And my grandmother said that was so bad that even God was crying. Well, I believed it because it was raining that day. Well, we went to the wooden chair. She started rocking, back and forth. Then she said, oh, Lord, have mercy. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Have mercy on my great-granddaughter. But that was so bad. Maybe she'll let me go back to bed now. But she did. She just couldn't start it. Oh, what chair. Here I am again. Here I am again with the same one. You know who it is. Yep, that's her. You know what she did? She hit my baby great-granddaughter in the face and called her a dirty, nasty name. Called her boogie face scaredy cat. I don't know where she got that from. And get it from me. And then she did all that because she wanted her sister to go in the kitchen and steal some cookies. But her sister, she's so sweet. She said no. She wasn't going in the kitchen stealing no cookies, and she wanted to go to heaven when she died. She's such a good baby. I don't know what happened this one. Well, I decided, unless you tell me different, I'm going to put her out. I know she's only 7 years old, but I have loved her. I've prayed for her. I've cried for her. I've talked to her. And she won't listen. So she got to go. Well, she rocked back and forth some more. Then she got up. And she had a smile on her face. Now that scared me more than ever. She said, well, I guess I won't have to do anything to you today or the next day either. You know what the wooden chair told me? Wooden chair told me you gonna behave yourself. See, you ain't never gonna hit your sister again. That ain't all. You ain't gonna try to steal no cookies. 'Cause I knew that wooden chair told me that the boogeyman was out there. And he'd like to snatch off the hands of little girls who hit their sisters in the face. And the boogie woman was out there too. She'd like to snatch out the tongues of little girls who hit their sisters, who call their sisters names. And then, Lord, there's all those little boogie children. They like to kick, bite, scratch, pinch. Little girls who try to get their sister to go in the kitchen and steal. But the boogeyman, the boogie woman, and the boogie children, they ain't gonna hit you tonight. Because the wooden chair told me, and I know the wooden chair wouldn't lie to me. The wooden chair told me that you ain't never gonna do anything bad again. In fact, the wooden chair told me you gonna go up and make me proud of you. Yeah? Okay. Listen, I know you only had 3 cookies. You want to go in the kitchen with Grandma, get some more cookies? I didn't trust her. I didn't trust the wooden chair. I just wanted to go back to bed. I said, no, thank you. No, thank you, Grandma. And I ran and I jumped in the bed. Do you know, years later, every time I was going to do something, I think about that story. In fact, I think about my grandmother often, because a lot of times she told me stories that I used to get through some challenges. She was a good woman. She used to tell me a lot of stories. I remember she told me the story about this woman was a slave. Said there was overseer was hard to make her do right. Overseer. Well, one day she was picking cotton so fast. Oh, they didn't know what to do. Then they made her pick the cotton the men were supposed to pick. And she picked it 10 times faster than the men. So then they want to make a profit, you know. So there want her to pick a whole section of cotton. But she said, she put hands on his. She said, I'm not gonna do it. That overseer said, what you say? She said, I said, I'm not gonna do it. That overseer took his whip and he raised it up and pew! But when he went to hit her, the thing wrapped around her waist, wrapped around her body, and he couldn't get it off. Now, what is this? What is this? Well, nobody knew why. Nobody knew how. Nobody knew nothing. But that overseer, he didn't touch her no more. No, he didn't. And they say she used to hum and chant, and she picked herbs. She knew about the herbs and the roots and the bark. And she'd make teas and all kinds of stuff. And she used to chant and hum. She knew everything. They say she outlived most of them and never got touched. Everybody else got beat. Now, I wondered about that story because I said, if she had all those powers, why couldn't she do that with the other people? She don't care about nobody else herself? Yeah, I don't know. My grandmother had some stories. My grandfather has some stories too. I don't know which one to believe and which one's not. But they all helped me. So I just went on about my business. You know, I grew up in Frankfort, Missouri. Frankfort, Missouri had a population of about 356 people. And my best friend came to see me. She got lost. Frankfort's only 4 blocks long, and she got lost. Well, she said, girl, I couldn't find you. So I went to that one gas station they had. And I asked the man then, you know Gladys Caines-Coggswell? He looked at me like I was a fool. He said, of course I know Gladys Caines-Coggswell. Only 300. He said, get out the way. Don't worry about it. I'll call her. And he went outside and said, Gladys! And she said, in less than a minute, I was right there. Now, that's not true, I know. But she was making fun of my town, you know. Anyway, Frankfort was a very good town to live in when I was living there. And I stayed there until I moved. Now, that's the end of that. Now I want to sing you a song that my grandmother used to sing. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. There's gonna be no more crying, no more crying, no more crying over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Thank you. Okay, that is the end of that. Now you got some questions?
Oh, I can't hear you.
Lisa, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, how dare
I
you?
muted myself. I just wanted to say thank you, Angela and Gladys. That was just wonderful. And I was kind of chuckling along and singing along and clapping my hands, as I'm sure everybody else was too.
Thank you.
So, yeah, if anybody has any questions for Angela or Gladys, please feel free to put them into the chat. I can see both the Facebook comments on several different pages, so please feel free to put them in there. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed that. That was just beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have, how long were you in it was Frankfort, right? Frankfort, Missouri, Gladys? How long were you there?
41 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
So that tells you I'm old.
I love that story. Is it still as small as that? Is it still only 356 people?
Oh, I don't think it's that big now.
Yeah.
It's smaller. Because I don't think anybody replaced me unless the little babies were born.
Yeah.
So when I left, I was married and I got divorced. My husband left and my son left. So that's 353. And I don't know if anybody got murders or not.
Yeah.
But I'm sure somebody died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
But in that time, yeah, probably somebody did, I'm sure.
And if they didn't, they did in 2020 because 2020 was bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly was.
Yeah.
Certainly was. There's some comments. A lot of people remember that wooden chair story. That must be a story that kind of lives long in people's memory there.
Yes, there's that one and why the eagle has a bald head. Those are my grandmother's stories.
Your grandmother sounds like a pretty amazing woman.
She was.
For sure.
Yeah.
So there's a question here from Heather. Tell about the town celebrating when you got your master's degree in Frankfort.
Oh, that was wonderful. When I got my master's degree, the town gave me a surprise party. And they marched around the town. They marched all over town on the horse and buggies and cars. And so when we got back, we went to the Daisy Patch that's owned by Millie Redding. And I had all kind of gifts, but the one that surprised me the most was the cake. I kept trying to cut it, but it wouldn't cut. And so I leaned down and I looked. Then I said, I'm going to try one more time. And it was rolls of toilet paper with icing on it.
That's hilarious.
But it was a memorable occasion because they bought me presents and money and cards, and it was just really nice.
That's really,
yeah.
It's special. You were a big part of the town history. It sounds like it's nice. It's very rare to have that kind of small town connected feeling.
Yeah.
And
felt that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There's another question here. A great question from Rachel. With the 353 people, who were considered the elders or the wise ones? How did they earn that status?
Well, in the Black community, Miss Cammie Doolin, she was 99 when she died, and she'd been there all her life. And she was the matriarch of the church. And she told us a lot of things. There's a magazine, A Handful of Dinky, that was written by Dr. Bain, who was the director of the Missouri Folklife Society and Folk Arts Society. And she had her in there. I'll show her picture tomorrow. She had started the choir in Frankfurt. They have a big choir day every first Sunday in May.
Mhm.
And all the people from all over come, and people that used to live there that don't live there anymore. And I don't suppose there are too many of them left, though. But she was the matriarch.
Well, now is she in your book, the Stories from the Heart book? Do you write about her in the?
A little bit, but
Okay.
she's mostly in the magazine, Handful of Dinky.
Okay, got it.
Came out in 1992.
Mhm.
We're going to provide the link to it.
I'm going to provide the link to that magazine tomorrow.
Great, wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I can do it here, but I'll try to put the link to your book so people have the name of the book. It's Stories from the Heart, right?
Yeah, and if they don't, they'll have it tomorrow.
Okay. And Mark or Gennard, if you can put the link to the workshop tomorrow. I know we have several people registered already. This is a workshop on developing and telling family stories.
Yeah,
and thank you, Mark, for
we'll
putting that in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's not too late to sign up for that. It's a free workshop, and Angela and Gladys will talk about that process. This is a workshop they've done a few times before, I know, at the festival, and it's a really great workshop. And as you can see, there's a lot of great stories that can be kind of mined that way. So it'll be a really great workshop. I hope you can join. It will be on Zoom. It's not going to be on Facebook. So.
And we'll tell about some of the stories that I wrote in the book.
Okay.
I'll especially mention Evelyn Pulliam, who was my friend. And I had talked to her August the 10th, and August the 12th, she died. And it was a surprise.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Only 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not too long ago.
No.
Yeah.
Last year, the dreaded year.
Yeah. The year that shall not be named.
No, that's right.
So Lisa Higgins made a comment. I saw a copy of the book for sale today in the gift shop at the State Historical Society of Missouri in downtown Columbia. So if anybody there is in Columbia and can get into that gift shop, it's probably available online, I would imagine too.
Yeah.
But if you join Gladys and Angela at the workshop tomorrow, they'll have the link to that book, and I'll try to put the name of the book in the chat comments here too, because it's a great book. And Angela, were you involved in collecting stories for that book as well, or?
Yes, I have 2 stories in that book as well.
Oh, wonderful! That's just great. And you learned with Angela. I want to put a plug in again for that traditional arts apprenticeship program through the Missouri Folk Arts Society.
Some information on that tomorrow too. We have a handout where to go if you want to be involved in that program.
Wonderful. That's a great program and a real boon for Missouri. There's a couple comments I just want to read because you're getting a lot of love here. Paul says, thank you for your hospitality to me in Frankfurt and for all of your stories. This is Ann Schwarzkopf.
Oh, you're welcome, Ann.
Hi, Ann. And Paul. That's Paul.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love this. And Lisa Higgins says, Gladys wrote a lovely tribute to Mrs. Evelyn Pulliam for our blog. It's here, and then she puts a link in there.
Yeah.
And so you can read about that there for all of you who are listening in on Facebook here. So, and I do want to also point out, I'd be remiss not mentioning this, but we do have, the Story Center at the Mid-Continent Public Library has a evaluation, a survey, if you'd like to take just a few minutes and fill that out. I know they would really appreciate it. This helps get feedback and just kind of know who's listening and all that. So that link is there in the chat comments, and they'll probably put the link up again before we jump off here, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And a couple more comments coming in. Joyce Slater says, remember the time.
Joyce.
I love the duo response from you both. You two are so in sync. It's fantastic. Yeah. Joyce Slater says, remember the time that Geneva and I spent the night at your house and then made the trip to the National Storytelling Festival? We slept on the sofa bed.
Yes. Yes, I remember. I remember. I had to tell that for the, what is the exchange place, the National Storytelling Festival. And I was so scared, but I got up and I told, then all the people got up and clapped. And I thought, when they got up at first, I thought there was a fire and I was going to run. But they were giving me a standing ovation. That was great.
That's fantastic.
And Joyce drove me. Geneva tried to drive me, but Geneva has a disease called sleeping something. And she falls asleep when she drives. And I said, Geneva, you can't drive. But we got there.
Well, good. That's good. Yeah, that's not a good combination, sleeping and driving.
No.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
I just want to say about traditional storytelling. A lot of people want to get in traditional storytelling. It's the transference of a story from one generation to another. And that's how I first learned my stories, from my great-grandmother. She used to tell me that I would go to hell if I didn't tell the stories right and if I didn't behave. So I didn't like it then, but like I said, after I grew up, I realized that she was just loving me in her way by telling the story. And she couldn't read, she couldn't write, she didn't know a noun from a pronoun, but she told a story that convinced me. And that's something that we don't do enough of today, is tell traditional stories. And I think that the digital storytelling and all the other storytelling that takes place is necessary. We should keep it all. But I don't think we should forget about the traditional storytelling.
No, absolutely not. And the intergenerational part is so important too, so crucial and so important. Joyce made a comment. She wants to remind people Gladys also won the Missouri Humanities Award. So yeah. Congratulations, Gladys.
Thank you.
Funny, Beth says, I was in the Exchange Place audience. You were fabulous. We were all laughing hysterically.
You were there?
Beth Horner says she was there at the Exchange Place. So when you thought the fire alarm was ringing, she was there. Isn't it funny how it comes full circle here on Facebook? So yeah. Yeah, it's who would have known that all these years later we'd be reconnecting kind of serendipitously on Facebook and reliving some of those memories. It's fantastic.
That's like with Evelyn in the 1960s, she was quarantined because there was diphtheria. And I didn't know that. And now she died the year there was COVID-19. So it seems so ironic that she lived then with the disease and she came back and she has we have a disease now.
Yeah.
The pandemic.
We're going to get through it too.
We are. We are going to get through it. That's true.
Yeah.
Michael Misham says Gladys tells the best golden arm story as well. So we won't hear it tonight, but at some point we gotta search Gladys out for that golden arm story.
Oh my God! Thank you, Michael.
And Beth, by the way, responded and said, "Yes, I was there. Hi, Gladys and Angela." So.
Hi, Beth. I'm glad you were there, and I'm glad you're here now.
I should also mention for people still listening in, Beth will be our next oral storyteller for our State of Stories program. She's going to be doing a performance and workshop coming up. Mark, do you have the dates? I don't have the exact dates. It's in April, I believe.
I'll find it on the computer.
Mark is coming back here and he can share some information about that, I think. I can put it up. And anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to that next program coming up. So thank you both. And I'm going to let Mark kind of wrap it up for us here. Thanks everybody for listening in. It was really fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're muted, Mark.
You're muted, Mark.
There we go.
Get loud enough now.
Yeah, great. Thank you both. That was terrific. Thank you for being here and sharing those stories. Beth Horner will be joining us on May 14th and May 15th. So
on May 14th.
Yes, in mid-May. But thank you again for being here and sharing your stories. And we look forward to having you back. And your workshop tomorrow should be terrific.
We'll be there.
Good deal. And we will see you all again here soon. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Good night.